So this is an example in Asia that we have actually implemented. And so the way that this works is the ISP has opt-in from the client. In exchange, they give 30% off the monthly bill. And there's also essentially the agreement that they will not track certain kinds of sites that they visit, right? And many of you may agree with this. People are most sensitive about four kinds of things, right? Financial information, health-related stuff, things related to security, and things related to some personal browsing habits that they have, which they do not want other people to know about. These are categorized, and the ISP does not touch those sites, right? But anything else that they do, things that you search on electronic sites, sites that you visit for shopping, all this would be information that they collect. And what they do is at any point in time, let's say you go to the New York Times webpage, the banner page, the banner ad on the New York Times webpage is essentially asking the question to the ISP saying, here's this customer who's come to my site. What do you know about him that will help me target an ad that is personal? So you know that he's been looking for high definition television for the last 24 hours. You've been Googling that, you've been binging it, you've been going to Sony websites, and then it says, go and show him a Sony HDTV coupon. That has the highest likelihood of someone clicking on it. And so the ad network in real time pushes the ad to the browser, and you actually see the Sony HDTV coupon. And essentially the ad revenue value chain, the advertiser pays to the network, to the publisher, and the telco gets a cut of that. And this is the insight that the telco would give the ad network. For instance, it says computers, he's interested in computer hardware, that's number one, electronics, personal video. So this is the priority of the interest of the consumer. The Google economy is all about people who have intent, and knowing intent of your subscribers is a big asset. So if you can find a way to monetize it, and the ISP is the only entity in the whole ecosystem who knows intent more than what you search on Google. So Google knows what you search in Google, it doesn't know what else you're doing. But the ISP potentially knows what you're searching on Google, what you're doing on sites, and what you're doing across multiple properties, right? So that's one monetization model we talked about. The second one is quality of service management. So this was a case in which it was Telefonica, which actually found that a lot of customers have drop calls, and there was a high correlation to certain handsets. And they proactively reached out to those customers and found a way to change those handsets. They also found that there were content adaptation issues. So third-party content was not being rendered properly on certain types of handsets and devices. Again, they asked the third-party owners to fix it. And a lot of this is derived by using unknown unknowns. So you have to proactively search your customer base for adoption patterns and find those disconnects. So MMS adoption. So MMS is an interesting case in which this customer, TMN, actually found that 5% of users generate 85% of the business. These 5% of users would be hubs of the network. So if you actually increase the level of participation of the 5% of users, it actually elevates the activity in the network. So they went and launched campaigns targeted at the 5% of the users to increase the level of MMS usage, which blanketed the network with even higher levels of MMS, which also increased the revenue for them. So you would do that by using social network analysis. Is this something that any of you have piloted, interested in? So again, something that you may want to think about, subscriber patterns, who's calling who, what kind of relationships they have, and if you can mine it effectively for insight. The next one is tracking VoIP usage, and this is a case in EMEA. Here's a customer who thought of VoIP not as a competition, but as an opportunity. So they said, okay, a lot of my customers are using Skype, and this is cannibalizing my long distance revenue. So let me see who's using Skype and what are they using it for. And then they would go to these customers and give them assured quality of service where they would dynamically get a higher level of bandwidth for Skype video conferencing. In some cases, they would also launch fantastic long-distance international plans that would actually allow these people not to that would give them the opportunity to use the provider service in addition to Skype. So again, to do a lot of these things, you need to understand IP traffic, you need to pull this together, you need to inspect the deep, you need to analyze the packets, and you need to make sense out of it. So finally, a lot of this is about business outcomes. So as a business, we understand that, especially in today's economy, vendors, providers want vendors and systems integrators to take accountability for business outcomes. So this is all about increasing your revenue per user, reducing churn, reducing leakage, and adding to the bottom line. So we look at monetization in multiple ways, as we talked about, and this would be examples of some of the business outcomes that we have seen customers realize, not just with solutions that we have, but also with other solutions in the same domain. So the bottom line is we see a big change and transformation in how operators are looking at collection management and monetization of customer data. I think increasingly a lot of them come to believe that they need a strategy around subscriber data monetization. Some of the key best practices we talked about would be one data collection mechanism across multiple domains, one optimized data store that could manage on-portal, off-portal, mobile application traffic, usage, and interaction data. And then we talked about the known knowns, the known unknowns, and the unknown unknowns. Closed loop data automation, because dashboards and reports only go so far in terms of helping you get to the bottom of the issues. You have to find a way to take action. And using these insights to drive advertising, couponing, mobile commerce, and some of the 2.0 business models can also help you look at new revenue streams. So, and it's impossible for you to do all of this at the same time. So my message would also be to think of a roadmap for how you can get there. Because if a technology vision for this also drives the opportunity to engage in some of the new models that we discussed. So that was a presentation. I hope you guys have questions for me. Did you find this useful? Does this resonate with some of the issues that you see in your business in terms of business intelligence and analytics? Now, again, I want to say business intelligence is such a broad term, and people use it in so many different contexts and ways. I think what we have tried to do is to focus it on a specific message about how do you monetize your subscriber data and how can you get a holistic view of that. We do that. We do access the Google APIs. We also use Google Analytics on our own web pages. How many of you track what customers are doing off portal? If you happen to be a mobile operator and people use over-the-top services, they're just accessing internet sites. Do you know what they're doing? Yes. So in Asia, where people have implemented solutions like this, what I find is that a few principles they have complied with, right? One is none of this is persistent in any way. So, and none of this is also identified. So it's very important to not to store it anywhere, right? The second thing is you have to do it based on opt-in. And if customers opt in, customers would opt in only if there's something in it for them. They're not going to opt in because they're helping you monetize their data. So they're going to opt in if they get a discount on the bill and they get some commitments that certain kinds of traffic will not be monitored. So there are multiple levels to this. The ultimate level is, I think, what we're talking about, doing deep packet inspection, knowing what customers are doing on sites. But monetizing customer data by just having a strategy around what's happening with the usage to do better upsell, cross-sell, to understand when are they topping up, what patterns they have as they switch across channels, that has no regulatory issues. So I know Sprint, as an example, was very successful with cross-correlation. And I think they were also presenting at Gartner CRM Summit. I believe it was Bob Johnson or someone who worked for him. Talked about how customer scores have changed on the positive side because of the ability to look at customers as they move across channels and having deeper insight into them. So there's things that you can do which can have huge impact on churn and better understanding of customers and filling their needs. And things that you may want to do in terms of the new business models over time as there's more clarity in the marketplace on what's feasible. Yeah. I think the question you're also asking is why is the telco not getting a cut of it, right? Because these are apps that are over the top. And I think that's a kind of an identity question as well, is what is the value that the telecom is adding to the process, right? Because if the GPS chip is in the iPhone and the application is third party and it's using all that information. So which is where I do believe that the telco's value is in knowing the identity of the subscriber. You know who he is more than anybody else, right? I mean, you know how much is he paying per month, where does he live? You probably know even his family. So juxtaposing that location information with insight about the customer that you have can help you give additional insight to the advertising value chain. And the last point I want to leave you with this thought is that if you look at Gen X and Gen Y, I don't know if they are as concerned about privacy as we may be, right? I mean, look at how much information people are publishing about their private lives on Facebook. So I think 20 years from now, the fact that people would have a certain level of information about them being used by advertisers and telecom companies to give them a better experience as they browse the web may well be accepted as a fact of life. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.